Alive and Well STL is a presentation of the St. Louis Regional Health Commission and RareGem Productions to build a healthier St. Louis. Power up with the positive. Learn more at OneRareGem.com. That's OneRaregem.com. The Regional Health Commission works in partnership with regional health sector advocates and stakeholders to improve healthcare access, reduce health disparities, and improve health outcomes for the uninsured and the underinsured in St. Louis City and County.
Alive and Well STL. There's an African proverb that reads, "It takes a village to raise a child." Well, take that a step further. It takes a village to build the village. And with Alive and Well STL, we have an opportunity for individuals to get involved and collaborate on a community-wide basis to continue the Alive and Well STL conversation in their neighborhood, organizations, work, and faith communities.
When I look back, I didn't know what trauma was then, but looking at it from a trauma lens now, I can see that I've worked with a lot of people that have been impacted by trauma.
If I can take this information and start to shift the general perspective of yoga teachers and the way that they show up in their classrooms, it's going to make a big impact in creating safe spaces for people to come and heal.
This is producer Jade Harrell. We'll be right back. Holidays can be happy, but some folks are having a tough time right now, even with all the joy that's in the air. While this may be a jolly time, it still could be stressful. Take 5 to check on somebody that may not be feeling so merry right now. They deserve to be alive and well. You could make a big difference for them just by taking the time to listen. It helps when someone cares to understand. Everybody should be alive and well. Find more ways to take 5. Go to aliveandwellstl.com. Alive and Well STL. Meet the ambassadors.
Hello, my name is Robert White III. I am a trained ambassador with the Alive and Well initiative. I went through the training process probably about 3 or 4 months ago, and I've been on board ever since then.
I am also an ambassador. I'm Elle Potter. I'm the founder of Yoga Buzz.
Yoga Buzz.
I think it's been over a year now, actually, that I've been an ambassador with Alive and Well. And I was sitting here trying to remember while you were talking how I learned about Alive and Well, and I can't remember at this point. I don't know if somebody brought it to me or if I found it on the internet.
Right. So did you initiate a call once you discovered?
Yes, I did. I saw that they were looking for ambassadors early on in what they were doing and knew that I wanted to be a part of that conversation. So I reached out and applied to be an ambassador and then started showing up to meetings.
Sure. What attracted you to the project?
Now that I look back on it, I have approximately 18 years of experience working in the nonprofit sector, everything from social services to higher education, K-12 education, social work. And when I look back on some of the clients that I've encountered and people that I work with, I didn't know what trauma was then, but looking at it from a trauma lens now, I can see that I've worked with a lot of people that have been impacted by trauma. And unfortunately, as far as people of African descent are concerned, issues with mental health are taboo in our community, and we don't talk about them enough. And it was my personal passion as well as my professional experience that really wanted me to get involved with Alive and Well so that I can equip myself with some knowledge, tools, and resources around emotional wellness and trauma and just some mental health pieces, and go into the community and share some of what I've been equipped with to help people heal.
That's the ideal outlook for an ambassador of any sort. Tell me what you discovered in your training, what you became aware of and came to know about trauma.
Yeah, so one of the things, a lot of times we look at a person's behavior and we'll say, oh, that's bizarre, or, it doesn't fit into the societal framework of what is acceptable behavior. And a lot of times we'll jump right into looking at the behavior, not understanding that there's a process, or maybe there was an event or series of events that triggered certain emotions and how we interpret experiences and how we express our emotions. So it helped me to go beyond the surface of just looking at things and saying, well, that's bad behavior, and really understanding that in a lot of cases, there are events and there are experiences attached to the adverse behavior that we see in a lot of cases. But it also helped me to think about in my personal life, I think that we've all been impacted by trauma on some level. And if we took some time to step back and unpack and explore some of those things, we can see that, it's not one of those kind of icky, stay away from me kind of infectious things, but it's something that, it impacts people across race, across class, across gender. So that's what I've gained from the training.
What understanding did you have on the surface that made you want to go deeper?
I had just started scratching the surface within the conversation of trauma-informed yoga, which is starting to become more of a piece of conversation in the greater yoga community. And understanding my relationship within yoga and the things that I experienced as a student or as a teacher within a studio or with working with mentors and such that left me feeling really unsettled and uncomfortable, and realizing that a lot of things that were happening were not trauma-informed behaviors that was being modeled to me, and the way that it was really triggering me and bringing up stuff that I didn't realize was being brought up.
So for our listeners that are learning and discovering more about Alive and Well and trauma and toxic stress, would you mind painting the picture of trauma-informed yoga and what that looked like in your setting?
Definitely. So the thing that's really important to understand about yoga, or really any somatic practice, any physical practice, is that when somebody has experienced trauma or chronic stress, oftentimes we become disembodied. So we move away from the physical as a way to really protect ourself and our central nervous system from experiencing intense pain or memories that live within the tissues. And so when a student comes to yoga and starts to develop this connection, because yoga means union, right? It's a connection of mind and body, or breath and body. And so a student comes in after a period of time where they may have been disconnected from their body. They re-engage in a relationship with their body through the practice, and then stuff comes up. And so as a yoga teacher, it's important to understand what that might look like, how that might impact a student, and to, through the way that we lead, do everything that we can to be aware of that, so that we're really actively working to avoid re-traumatization.
Mm-hmm. So in both of your cases, it would seem that you stepped out of your fundamental role in your occupations because the stuff that comes up becomes a part of your service. Mm-hmm. Didn't have to be, not a mandate or requirement. But share a little bit, Elle, how you realized there needed to be a response and why you even felt like you should take ownership, responsibility for that.
Yeah. So I went from really relying on the people within my yoga community or within the structure of the studio that I was at in a variety of locations as well, really relying on them for guidance. And then
Did something happen that triggered?
And then something happened.
Okay.
Well, it was really just, it's very common in the yoga community is like, you step into these vulnerable conversations and you should step in and step in and step in. But when the person who's really encouraging and pushing you to step in has training as a yoga teacher, period, that's when things get really tricky, especially when that person is also in the role of a mentor or of a boss or a manager. And that's really not just in yoga, but anywhere. So I had a real big crisis, basically. I had an anxiety attack that lasted more or less 3 months. And it was... Personally, yeah. And so my own anxiety disorder really came to a head, something that I didn't realize I had. Now I look back and I'm thinking, duh, like my earliest memories of being a child, oh yeah, that was anxiety that I was experiencing. So I went to look for help because I was really lost and started going and seeing an actual therapist. And through my conversations with my therapist, I realized these were a lot of the same conversations that I was having with yoga teachers. And that boundary was not recognized neither by me nor by those who were encouraging the conversation. And so it led to being really vulnerable in a place of business or in a place of, a relationship that didn't necessarily have the background to be able to support what I was going through. Right, so when I really had this eruption of anxiety, there was not a lot of compassion or understanding for what I was going through. It was like, well, you still need to keep showing up, and like, what's going on? What's going on? It's like, actually, I just need everybody to back off, and I need to go take care of myself separate from here, because I hear a lot of people say, like, who needs therapy when you have yoga?
I was going to say, did yoga surface? Yeah. So yoga surfaced the awareness of the trauma. And then there wasn't something there to address it in that space.
Right.
Well, we often find, there is that separation. We have work, we have personal, and those two people and existences, never the two shall they meet. But in reality, they're the same. You are the person that shows up in the space, but you're basically adjusting to that space.
Sure.
But you're still that person.
Right. Well, and in the role of employee or in the role of student, when we look to the person that we've looked up to for advice and mentorship this whole time, and then they don't know how to support that particular or understand what's happening, what's going on behind it, it for me, I felt very lost. And it wasn't appropriate for me to put my expectations on these individuals, but I also didn't know where else to go. Exactly. And I wasn't being told, no, this is a line that I'm not going to cross.
Right, because yoga is personal. I mean, it's your profession, but it's very deep and personal. So that line isn't as clear. And honestly, I don't know how clear it is anywhere. Because if we're authentically living, which as we should, to be our best in any environment, which is what we're encouraging for Alive and Well, then those lines won't allow that. Sure. Did you find the training then personally helpful? And what did you learn?
I was starting to look at the conversation around trauma and trauma-informed practices through the lens of yoga. And so doing the training with Alive and Well really started to expand my perspective of what was going on in the world outside of really my yoga mat, because that's kind of the bubble that I had lived in for so long. And so to meet with other professionals and learn about what's going on in the world of public health and social work, et cetera, healthcare, and to see what other people are doing in their lines of work and being able to translate that into the yoga studio or on the yoga mat was really helpful. I think the most empowering thing that I've learned through all of the conversation around trauma is that the behaviors that people exhibit as they're trying to deal with trauma, whether consciously or unconsciously, comes from the body's resiliency. Like the body is built to heal itself. When you break a bone, the bone heals. If you don't have a cast to help provide boundaries and support, the bone will heal not optimally. And so you need that support system to get a strong regeneration of the bone. And it's the same, I think, in the mind and in the central nervous system, is it's trying desperately to figure out how to protect itself and how to take care and how to right the ship. And having a support system in place that can act as those containers to be able to recognize that it's totally normal or totally natural and really normal to react with this multitude, this whole spectrum of behavior that comes from trying to deal with trauma.
Sure. So, Rob, what tools did you acquire to utilize?
Yeah, so in addition to the training, I would encourage everyone to check out Alive and Well STL, their website. There are tons of great articles and resources on the website. Even before I received any training, just being able to find out about the ACE studies, just some practical tips on how to really, because we have to make a concentrated effort to make self-care a priority, especially when you work in certain types of fields. So just learning about the importance of self-care. I actually went and got certified in both youth and adult mental health first aid. And I found out about that information through the Alive and Well initiative. So there are a ton of resources. I think originally came into knowing about the Alive and Well initiative, ironically, through hearing your voice on the radio and hearing the commercials that were being broadcasted on the local radios. And that prompted me to say, oh, okay, what is this Alive and Well? And I went to the website and I was reeled in.
Wow. So how do you implement your learning? Talk about some ways that you actually utilize it in your work.
Yeah, so I haven't done a lot of large group presentations at this point because I am still fairly a young ambassador. However, recently, I want to say early November, I sat on a panel that was hosted by the St. Louis Pan-African Movement, and it dealt with mental health issues in the Black community. As I mentioned earlier, there's a taboo and stigma associated in this particular group. The St. Louis Pan-African Movement wanted to create a safe space where we can have open and honest and productive conversation. So that allowed me to share some of the knowledge that I acquired from Alive and Well in the trainings, and also try to recruit other ambassadors as well. That's one of the things I've taken on myself, is to unofficially recruit ambassadors wherever I can. A lot of implementation too comes through just using social media as a platform to bring awareness to issues around mental health, trauma, emotional well-being, and quite honestly, a lot of just one-on-one conversations, small group conversations. I'll eventually get to the point to where I'm speaking to larger groups, but for right now, those are the most effective ways that allow me to really, because sometimes I think that when you speak to a large group, it's kind of like you speak to the group and you move on. Whereas if you're speaking to family and friends, you may have a small conversation that can go on for a couple conversations, and you may have a little bit more of an opportunity to make an impact.
Absolutely. Well, if the ripple effect proves true, you were the one that heard the spot. And from you, the one became two or more. And if each other person is impacted positively by what you have come to know and share, then we've done a great service.
And for me, it was only a natural decision to get involved with Alive and Well and become an ambassador. My background is I got my college degree in communication studies with emphasis in public speaking. So I enjoy speaking to people. I'm not afraid of groups or crowds or anything like that. And then with my experience in the nonprofit sector and I've worked with every population from 5 to probably about 65. So I have a wide array of experience, worked with, in the school setting, elementary, high school, to all the way up to senior citizens, people that have been incarcerated. So it's allowed me to see people in a lot of different walks of life. And it's also provided me with an opportunity to meet people where they are, but to challenge them to go beyond that and see that it's possible for them to go beyond that. And sometimes just acknowledging and starting to work that process to kind of work through some of that trauma is a big part of that.
How are you different personally post Alive and Well?
Yeah, so definitely, again, I feel more comfortable and confident and just equipped with the knowledge and the resources to, if I don't have the answer, and it's okay to not always know everything and to not have the answer, but if I don't have the answer, I know that, as Elle mentioned earlier, I have that support system in Alive and Well and fellow ambassadors. I have access to resources, information. They're always doing continuous ongoing trainings. They're always providing opportunities for us to really go into the community and to share with the community to what we've gained from the training. So each and every opportunity that I have to interact with the Alive and Well staff, another ambassador, and the community at large helps me to become a better person, but also helps me to work through some personal things on my end.
And that's what it's done for me as well. I see where it's manifested and has created and opened up greater opportunities and potential that I didn't realize existed. That's the cool part. We get a whole lot back out of the deal, right? So, Elle, we often encourage people to do things and implement things like yoga as their self-care. So it's pretty neat how this is full circle. Talk about how you implement and utilize the training, or what tools that you were given that now help you with the work that you do.
I mean, it's very literally the presentation that we were trained to use to train others in the community. We just this year launched our 200-hour yoga teacher training program through Yoga Buzz. And so that is a very important part of what it is that we're including in that training. And so, you know, I have a group, we have 2 more weekends, and they're our second group this year. And by the end of 2016, we will have trained 50 people to become yoga teachers who understand the impact of trauma and how that might show up in a yoga practice. And I feel like that at least doubles the number of yoga teachers in St. Louis who understand really the impact of trauma. Because I started teaching, I did my first teacher training in 2008. So it's been almost 9 years now. And the first time this was ever presented to me was maybe 3 years ago. And I was just like, what is this? You know? And so, and even then it didn't really sit with me. It was something to think about, but it wasn't until I had my own personal crisis experience that was just like, oh, wait a second. Who was that? I'm going to go back and look that up. You know, and something that I think is so important is to be able to provide individuals with resources and with practitioners, whether it's yoga or massage or any multitude of things that understand as well, because there's a lot of doctors and a lot of professionals that will tell their clients, you should do yoga. And then they go to a super hot yoga class and they think that that's the only yoga, or they go to a really slow restorative class and they think that that's the only yoga. And then they just never go back again because they go and have an experience that doesn't support their individual needs, when there's a whole flavor, there's just a whole bunch of flavors of yoga. So, you know, one of the things that we're doing with Yoga Buzz is working with right now a small group of individuals who are really committed to understanding the impact of trauma within and how it shows up in yoga, to create basically support and resources for teachers who want to become trauma informed in what they're doing, so that we have then a network that follows, you know, a list of guidelines and adheres to mission and works in integrity with these guidelines, so that when professionals are encouraging students to go take a class, and they have then a list of teachers that they know are following, they know their education. That sentence fizzled
especially
out.
If there's reason. Right.
I'm so excited that I'm just like, was that just one sentence?
Right.
I don't know.
It regenerates on all sides.
Right.
So for the professionals that send them, and then in turn for us to receive and respond appropriately. And I love that, going back to that individual and that self-care piece and making that a point of awareness. What would be your hope and benefit for the community by having become an ambassador for Alive and Well STL?
We've been talking about the ripple effect, right? And I generally, oftentimes in my life, have felt like I have to do all of the things. But what I'm realizing, especially through this teacher training right now, is to take a group of individuals who have different backgrounds professionally and personally. And this teacher training group this fall is one of the most diverse groups of people I've ever seen come together for a yoga class in St. Louis, let alone a training. And so to have all those different backgrounds and perspectives to go out into the world, I'm already seeing part of what they have to do is create like a community outreach program using yoga, and whether or not they ever actually implement it is up to them, but they have to do it if they want their certificate. And there are people from the spring program that have already gotten their stuff implemented in these different, like there's a story on KSDK on the Alive and Well stuff of one of the gals who did our teacher training, who's sharing yoga for teens in an adoption and foster care resource center. So here I am just like ugly crying, watching this on my phone while I was out in DC and thinking like, this is the impact, right? Like it's sending this information outward. It's being able to present it and do the yoga of connecting trauma-informed and that understanding with yoga, and then sending it out into the world and seeing how that shows up, because that's going to make way more of an impact if we can shift the perspective of the teachers in the way that they meet their students that show up on the mat.
Absolutely. And create more teachers to get more folks on the mat.
Yes, definitely. And more teachers who like represent the fact that you don't have to look like one thing to do yoga. You don't have to be a thin, young, flexible white woman in order to do yoga.
Thank you for saying so. So how can I sign up?
I know, right? Come. Starts in March.
Okay. I'm in, matter of fact. So Rob, having become an ambassador, what do you see this can do for your community, and what do you hope arises from your work?
Yeah, so I, hope that we would all get on our A game. And what do I mean by our A game? I hope that my involvement and just Alive and Well, St. Louis being here, would bring more awareness to the issue of trauma and issues around emotional wellness and mental health, that it is a real thing, that those issues are probably a little bit more prevalent than we think, that people we come in contact every day that may look fine on the outside, they may be smiling, they may have a nice job, drive a expensive car, but deep down inside, they may be dealing with some issues around trauma. Acknowledgement that trauma is serious and trauma is something that we really need to explore, because it can impact us emotionally, mentally, physically. It can impact us on so many levels. And I would just hope even, once we've come to a place of awareness and acknowledgement, that we'll come to a place of action. And that can look like a couple different things. People that have acknowledged that maybe they're dealing with some issues around trauma, seeking out professional help. I would hope that the community would become more aware and get involved. I would definitely encourage anyone that's listening to this podcast and that's thinking about becoming an ambassador. Is definitely a worthwhile opportunity, and it would be worth your time, energy, and efforts. So hopefully, as a result of my work and the work of the larger Alive and Well, we'll all be on our A game.
Get on our A game. I was going to say, send out the invitation for folks to become ambassadors, and I think you just did that. What about you, Elle? Send out the invitation and the great benefit or reward that you see.
Yeah. I mean, it really is about shifting the perspective of how we see our fellow humans in relationship, in interactions, even just to the way that, somebody might cut me off on the highway. Like my perspective of, I don't know what's going on for them right now is taken to a different level, right? It's like you never know what's going on behind the scenes for an individual. But when I interact with somebody who I'm not entirely sure what's going on behind their behavior, I can think of it beyond just like, oh, this person is exhausting me, or this person is making me uncomfortable, or, this person, what is going on with this person, to having more compassion as I'm interacting with them. And I think that it's so important that no matter what the profession is that you are in, understanding that as long as you're interacting with people, this information is going to be very valuable. And if I can take this information and start to shift the general perspective of yoga teachers and the way that they show up in their classrooms, it's going to make a big impact in creating safe spaces for people to come and heal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Last question. Rob, I'll start with you. What does it mean to you to be alive and well in St. Louis?
So that means a state of holistic well-being, emotional, mental, physical. That means being able to see myself in relation to others, as Elle just mentioned. It means having access to the resources, whether that is, employment, or a job that, I can take care of my basic living expenses, or access to quality practitioners, where if I'm dealing with trauma, I have someone to speak to. So really, it's a holistic state of just well-being. The spiritual, I would dare to say that yoga has a spiritual component to it. Being able to walk around the neighborhood and just enjoy the beauty of nature, having accessible parks. I could go on and on and on, but that's just a snapshot of what it means to me.
It's a beautiful picture. And honestly, I'd love for you to come back and just lay out the whole vision. Just
I'd be honored to
speak it out. And I think by speaking it forward, we do create the opportunity and possibility for it, right? What does it mean to you to be alive and well in STL, Elle?
It's catchy. I know, right? To me, being alive and well is taking care of oneself first. So it's filling up my cup so that I can serve from it. And really expanding my perspective of the world around me. Being in the yoga world for as long as I have, it means that I've been generally surrounded by the same demographic of people. And so I've really worked hard, especially in this last year, to try to expand the people that I surround myself with, to look different, to have different backgrounds, to have conversations with them about how they take care of themselves and how, they want to show up so that they can take care of others as well. So I think being alive and well for me is really building community and cultivating understanding and compassion for one another.
Mm-hmm. Some more feelings surfaced while you were talking about that.
There is such a need for representation in yoga and mindfulness in order to create equity. Whoa, all the feelings.
Yeah.
And it's so important to empower. I mean, a big thing that I've kept saying this past year is empowering others to lead from within. Mm-hmm. And so to give people the tools and to really share the platform to be able to, the platform of Yoga Buzz that we've built over the past 2.5 years, to be able to lift up other voices that are oftentimes overlooked.
Yeah. So that's a beautiful thing.
Thanks. Yes.
And I value it tremendously. Tell folks where they can get connected with you and find out more about Yoga Buzz.
Sure.
And or get some ambassadorship. And encouragement.
So for Yoga Buzz, we're at yogabuzz.org, and we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as Yoga Buzz. We are accepting applications for our next round of 200-hour teacher training program, which starts in March. And what else is going on? We do pop-up events around the city as fundraising and as awareness around yoga and mindfulness. So you can look at our schedule there. We have events that are free, and we have events that have tickets attached to them as well.
Awesome. Rob, tell folks where they can connect with you and learn from you and be a part of all the positive things that you're bringing to our community.
I don't have like a website or anything like that. I'm just an individual person that wants to make a small impact. However, I would direct people again to the Alive and Well St. Louis website. There are tons of great resources on there. And I would like to recommend a book specifically for people of African descent. I became aware of the work of Dr. Joy DeGruy a couple years ago, and she deals with post-traumatic slave syndrome. It's something that we as a collective body of people have to deal with in addition to our own individual trauma. So I would definitely recommend taking a look at some of her work and her books as well.
Absolutely. I highly recommend it too. It was very life-changing for me to read about trauma from that perspective. That's Dr. Joy DeGruy, and it's spelled Joy for Joy, DeGruy. DE, capital GRUY, to learn more about post-traumatic slave syndrome there. And of course, find us at Alive and Well STL.com. And we encourage you to get connected, get with this movement, become an ambassador for change and for healing in our community. I thank you both for being with us.
Thank you.
Rob White, Elle Potter, of course.
Yes.
How appropriate. And thank you for signing up to be ambassadors and delivering on the very idea and model of what we would hope for it too.
Absolutely.
If you're interested in being a part of Alive and Well STL and helping continue the conversation, please visit aliveandwellstl.com or email aliveandwellstl@stlrhc.org. We're excited to have you join us with the Alive and Well STL movement. Alive and Well STL is now a community-wide effort focused on reducing the impact of stress and trauma on our health and well-being. The research is clear. Stress and traumatic experiences are making many of us sick, and together are the leading cause of poor health outcomes. Take 5. Visit us at aliveandwellstl.com to find out where you are emotionally. Become an ambassador. Reach out and help build a supportive community. Learn resiliency skills. Get the help you need. Share your stories. Hear others. And learn more about stress and how it affects us. That's aliveandwellstl.com. Alive and Well STL is another positive production of RareGem Productions. Thanks for listening.